Call home but have to self-isolate. Many experiencing homelessness are staying in an isolation center, but it's filled up. Well, another shelter enters outbreak. Cold temperatures have some breaking the ice, while others take a spin on it. It dipped so low today, Windsor almost broke a record. I know many of us were staying inside. Some found a little joy in the frigid weather. A deep freeze in Windsor left us waking up with temperatures at -21 as of 8 this morning. That's without the wind chill. Colette Kennedy brings us the full forecast tonight. I'm Chris Ensing. Thanks for watching. There's been changes to the vaccine priority list across the province, and it means seniors 80 and up are moving up the list. Now, all of this as health officials gear up for mass immunization in the community. There have been calls to make sure that seniors in the community were next in line for their shots. Our local health unit was a loud voice in that push. Now the news comes as a relief for those eager to get their shots. For seniors, it's one step closer to a life back to normal. CBC's Kat.
I'd like to get the shot. Makes me normal so I can do things. I've spent my whole life doing things, and now I'm doing nothing.
Pfeiffer misses her grandkids and still hasn't met some of her great-grandkids. The separation has been depressing. Pfeiffer and her daughter Dara are hopeful for a better life after the vaccine.
I feel it's great. We need the seniors to get these shots so they can get back to reality, because most of them are getting depressed being at home and lonely. And as soon as they can get this shot, we can get the virus under control, we can get back not only to our own lives, but as my members say from the club, they can get back to cards. They need activity. They need to get out and see people.
The changes outlined in a memo from the Vaccine Distribution Task Force. Those 80 and older in the community considered next priority in Phase 1. Before, they would have had to wait until Phase 2. Now they come right after those in long-term care, high-priority health workers, and Indigenous adults in northern, remote, and higher-risk communities. But questions remain about how this rollout will work. The health unit says details on booking an appointment should be announced next week.
We are also considering our primary care providers to maybe share that information from their rostered patient to us, and also with the pharmacies, if they can share that information with us of all the people who are 80 plus. And once we have that list, there will be some kind of system to reach out to them and then start enrolling them for their vaccine.
The health unit is also recruiting volunteers for vaccination clinics.
We are asking for healthcare providers or people with a medical background, that would be, physicians, nurses.
Sites are also in the process of being confirmed. Right now, the only active vaccination clinic is at St. Clair College's Sportsplex. The hospital has also set up this backup clinic at Windsor Hall. When the region gets more shots, this will be one of many operating in the region. Other locations in the area are yet to be confirmed. Here in Windsor, the WFCU is one option. It's currently being assessed as a possible site.
CBC's Katerina Georgieva reporting for us tonight. We should add the hospital has received another shipment of the Pfizer shots. Now, the hospital is focusing right now on getting the second shots, those still waiting for it. But they needed this latest shipment to make sure that everyone still waiting on that second shot got the second shot. This will cover everyone off. The hospital hoped that it would get to everyone within 35 days, but because of that delay, some are going to get it within 36. That's still within that 42-day window, though, that's allowed by the province. With this latest shipment, which included nearly 4,000 doses, there's enough to start getting more people vaccinated with their very first shots, one step closer to getting those doses into the arms of seniors who are living in the community. Now, this morning, the health unit got answers about yesterday's no new COVID-19 cases update. There were actually 33 cases that were not reported yesterday because there was an issue with the system. Today, there are 43 new cases in Windsor, Essex. Of those, 14 are related to an outbreak. 14 were acquired in the community. 12 were close contacts of confirmed cases, and 2 were related to travel. The remainder are still under investigation. And some news just coming into our newsroom today. A new outbreak at Windsor Regional Hospital. 3 patients have tested positive in the clinical teaching unit at the Olette campus. They're going to be testing more patients and staff as well. An isolation and recovery center for people who have tested positive but have no place to live is now full. According to outreach service providers, the recent spread of COVID-19 among those without a home highlights the housing crisis and how it's a healthcare crisis. All year, it was a concern. Now it's a cold reality. The largest emergency shelters in Windsor, Essex are in an outbreak.
This is a very at-risk population. This is a vulnerable population. They have much higher risk of contracting COVID because of how they live.
Right now, there's at least 73 cases connected to these two outbreaks. The Salvation Army has 8 clients who have tested positive. 46 people who use the downtown mission now have COVID-19. The City of Windsor and the Welcome Centre for Women run the city's isolation and recovery centre, where positive cases and close contacts can isolate.
I believe we are at capacity at this time, and the challenge is what happens if we get more cases and how do you isolate them?
The City of Windsor hasn't been specific in what the next step is. We've asked for interviews and were sent a statement saying that people continue to be accommodated, but there were no details on where now that the centre is full. The Salvation Army is no longer accepting new guests during their outbreak. People can stay at the downtown mission, which is now using the old Central Library branch for the foreseeable future. Waterworld continues to be run by the city as a drop-in center, with outreach staff on site daily to help find steady housing. But that can take months.
We do a lot of social engagement with people, helping them to access healthcare services. The number one thing that we're doing at Waterworld is helping them find housing. Yeah. What do we got to do to get you housed? I can tell you we're looking at moving folks primarily into rooming homes, boarding homes, places where they have shared living accommodation, which during COVID is the last thing we want to be doing.
Zuck says this highlights a problem Windsor Essex has been working on for years: permanent, affordable housing.
The best place to fight the virus is to remain at home, to shelter in place. So for those that don't have a permanent place to live, that's an absolute impossibility. And so, when we look at the issue of homelessness, it is a care crisis. And we, it's a little late to be trying to catch up now, because people needed homes months ago.
In almost 2 decades of record keeping, Windsor police have never counted so many domestic violence incidents as they did last year. Police are reporting 681 incidents in 2020. That's about 20% higher than it was the year before. CBC's Sanjay Maru spoke with someone from the local women's shelter who says the spike is a result of many people being locked down at home, including those in abusive relationships.
I think what it tells me is that more women are reaching out to Windsor Police, because we don't always see that. That's important for that to continue, because at the end of the day, that's one way to help them keep safe.
At Hiatus House, what are you seeing in terms of what some of the women coming forward seeking assistance from the facility are saying? Are they discussing COVID as a factor for any type of strain in their relationship?
Absolutely. It's the psychological, the emotional abuse. Like sometimes they have to, to actually talk to a family member. They have to step outside when maybe he's on the phone or he's on a Zoom call through work. So they have to find, moments when they're at home to actually make those phone calls. So in some situations, it's a lot more difficult to reach out because they are being told to stay at home.
Now, back in March, CBC spoke with Hiatus House. At the time, the organization said that COVID-19 would put women in abusive relationships at an increased risk. So now that these numbers are out, are you concerned that numbers will continue to rise as this pandemic continues?
Our concern is that the level and the severity of abuse does tend to escalate at times. So if they are isolated at home and not reaching out for help, that we do see that, in some cases, that the severity of the abuse certainly can increase over time.
The new COVID-19 travel guidelines are now in effect at the Canada-US border, but the largest group of people who cross the border regularly, commercial truck drivers, are not required to take a test. They're not required to quarantine once they get home either. Government officials say the flow of trade must continue freely, and Canadians depend on many of the goods that are transported. But as Diane Buckner tells us, some truckers are worried about the risks, and they're speaking out.
Leanne and Gerald Steves have just arrived back in Ontario after their weekly trip to California. The husband and wife trucker team say Americans they encounter don't take COVID seriously.
They don't wear their masks, they're not social distancing. They travel everywhere.
Calgary-based trucker Louis Franco also feels unsafe.
People look at you if you're wearing a mask like you're weird, like, you're overreacting.
Of the 10 million entries into Canada since the pandemic began, the Canada Border Services Agency says close to 5 million were commercial truck drivers. Proof of a negative COVID test? Not needed.
Essential workers, such as truckers and emergency service providers, as well as cross-border communities, will be exempt from this requirement.
The original coronavirus is already hard enough. These new variants are even more transmissible and potentially more deadly.
This epidemiologist is puzzled why essential workers aren't given rapid tests.
Why they're not being deployed at the borders, I don't know.
The Minister of Public Safety says that is now being considered.
We're looking at implementing a system of regular testing to help protect those essential workers and truck drivers.
Leanne and Gerald Steeves say border tests would lead to massive lineups. The Teamsters Canada Union agrees.
People will be sitting there for 2 or 3 hours, just in that. Now, trucks and trailers are 75 feet long. Where are you going to put them?
The government.
Louis Franco says vaccine priority would be a better way to go.
We haven't even been told if we're going to get vaccinated or not. There is nothing, no information, nothing.
Diane Buckner, CBC News, Woodbridge, Ontario.
Ridership is down at Transit Windsor, and it's placing the service at risk. Those who need it most say it's a lifeline for them.
What I do know is that it's the dead of winter and there's still people waiting curbside to get to their doctor's appointments and to get to grocery stores. And they're just standing out there waiting for 20 to 30 to 40 minutes sometimes, waiting for a bus that they don't know when it's going to come because of this schedule that is not reliable.
Now, they add that transit hasn't been taken seriously at all during the pandemic and that many have lost faith in the service. The city says ridership has been reduced by 85% compared to pre-pandemic figures from last year. Financially, it's struggling to maintain current operations and says it needs the federal and provincial government to provide more funding to keep services as they are. There's a new petition to have a drag strip built in Windsor. So far, 1,600 signatures online, and one of the men behind it is Jim Pollard. Now, he says not only would a facility like this curb illegal street racing, but it would also add to Windsor's heritage as the automotive capital of Canada.
I bought my first car at the age of 15 and rebuilt it and had it done within 3 years, and so it was a lot of fun. Kept me broke and out of trouble. In the late 60s, Windsor used to have its own drag strip on Manning and Baseline. It was called Windsor Dragway. But unfortunately for us, we have to travel in between 2.5 and 3 hours for most of the people around here just to have the event at Grand Bend. One of the largest costs besides the car itself and the parts that go into it are the ability to get that car to a racetrack. So it could be very, very expensive to travel to any of these events. But if you had your own facility, it would allow you to do testing, to do local events, support your local people. We're supposed to be the automotive capital of Canada, and we have really nothing except bingos and bars. This petition that has been started, it's something that we hope to just raise awareness, get some of the restrictions raised, taking the focus off of street racing. It's always going to occur, but it can be curbed tremendously if the people had somewhere to go in order to do this. And there's many guys like myself that have garages full of cars and parts and love nothing more than tinkering. And once the car's done, we obviously want to see what it'll do.
That's Jim Pollier, who's been pushing that petition online. And while Windsor may not be the coldest region in Canada, we've had some chilly weather over the past few days. Today, we're coming close to breaking the record for coldest day ever. That was set in 1958. We got to a chill of minus 21.1 degrees Celsius, just 0.6 degrees off from that icy record. We sent Jacob Barker out there with his mitts and his toque to see how people are embracing the colder weather.
With sub-zero temperatures set to last through the weekend here in Windsor, a lot of people are likely to stay inside close to their heaters, but others are excited to get outside and enjoy the chill. It might not be top of mind, for instance, to break out the bike during a cold spell, but for Lindsay Birch, it's a way to get moving and take in one of her favorite spots, the Windsor waterfront.
The air is really fresh and the views are surprisingly beautiful. Like the ice on the waterfront is like the Arctic, which I didn't know about until coming out in the winter. And they plowed the sidewalk. The whole like pathway is plowed, so you can like still ride your bike. So once I realized that, I come out like every day now.
Most, however, take to the pathways by foot, making the most of the short season.
I think that we don't prepare enough for winter. Okay. We tend to want to run out the door with not being dressed properly because we don't get a lot of cold weather.
Not prepared by foot and not prepared in their cars. Mechanics tend to see more of certain kinds of jobs in cold snaps like these.
There's definitely an increase in battery sales. As a matter of fact, today we've dealt with 2 battery issues so far.
Batteries is one and tires are another.
And it truly saddens me, like when folks come in and they've banged it, they've ran their car into a sidewalk or something. Like I know it's work and it's that's okay for us, but I do feel saddened for the individual who's come in and that happens quite often as well.
But sometimes it's just getting out the door to have some winter fun.
Like I was kind of scared. We were like, oh, let's go play, and I looked at the weather and I was like, wow, how are we gonna play? And then once you're out here though, it's not even bad.
And the game itself doesn't really matter. It's just about being outside. What's the score today?
No clue. I think it's like 10-9 or we've just been playing.
It's not about the score.
No, we haven't even been keeping track.
Just outside playing and enjoying what the cold has to offer. Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
And you know us, we also enjoy what the Detroit River has to offer. Take a look here. We captured it on the tower cam once again. The Coast Guard breaking through some ice there, as you can see. A chilly day, but there's always something to see outside. Colette Kennedy is going to join us after the break to give us an idea of what's to come. It's cold, it's snowy, but it's also the perfect time of the year to spot an iconic bird. Take a look at this. This is a majestic bald eagle. Mike Evans captured not just one, but a convocation of eagles. He filmed this out on Peche Island. That's what it's pointed toward. Evans posted it on his YouTube page, which you have to check out. He has a bunch of posts about all of the animals around, but this video right here, we'll bring in Colette Kennedy here. Like, look at what's about to, do you see? We almost caught the capture there. And just to see that happen in your own backyard, I've constantly been amazed by nature during this pandemic. It's been great.
It has been, and I was, I found just the one, and then there's all of those. The snowy owls have been coming further south, and they call that an eruption that they're having this year. So I wonder if that's an eruption of bald eagles, but some awesome imagery there. Well, we've had an eruption of cold air, haven't we, that sunk so far south, and it's also the storm track here. Kind of been blocked by these ridges of high pressure to either side, holding it in place. That storm track just a little to the south of us here, though, for the lower Great Lakes. So the main system that's coming through is going to stay there, but we're still going to get kind of, like I often say, just tagged by this one with some of that snowfall. And by the way, with these temperatures, the extreme cold they've been seeing all the way into the southern plains, starting to moderate a little bit, like they're going above freezing in Dallas, but really not going back up till the beginning of next week, where, do you want to hear this? They'll be back up to like 18, 19 degrees for their daytime highs. Now, never mind that. Let's look at our temperatures. -8 for Windsor. We're at -9 in Chatham, Kent. And, we factor those winds in. We give you that feels like temperature, and that's where it's at. But even that's not nearly as cool as that low from this morning of 21.1 minus. Got to put the minus in there, right? Cloud cover pushing in. The system itself, though, look at how far away it is. It is beginning to move towards the Ohio Valley, just kind of knocking on the door there. And that's going to make haste and start to come in towards the early morning hours tomorrow. So we'll see some flurries beginning to develop, moving through, maybe at times a little bit of a drizzle kind of mix in there. And then we'll see some of this lighter stuff. Pretty light in intensity, although it will be with us through to the afternoon. But still, the amounts in terms of accumulation should be on the lighter side. And then we should get sunshine coming in eventually into Friday. So that's looking like a better day there. But see, I've got us down there around 4 or 5 centimeters in terms of what we'll be seeing through with this one on Thursday. It still can make the roadways wet and slow things down if you do have to be out and about. Overnight tonight, that's a little better, -10, still feeling like -15. And then tomorrow afternoon around -4, -3 there for Chatham, Kent, as we get that light snow coming through and those northeasterly winds blowing. They won't be too strong, a little stronger a bit further east, and that's where we're more likely to see the snow squalls on the west end of Lake Ontario. Now, Friday with that sunshine, look at the temperature starting to rise a little bit, but I loved putting in Monday in. We do have another system coming in with some snowfall, but no negative, just one.
Negative. That's right. People always say we need more positive news. Exactly. That's it. Thanks for filling that out for us, Colette.
You're welcome.
Now, not everyone gets to enjoy the snow outside, but a man on the East Coast wanted to make sure that one young man with cerebral palsy had the tool to have some fun on the hills. Prince Philip has been admitted to hospital in London after feeling unwell. The 99-year-old husband of the Queen was admitted last evening on advice from his doctor. It's being called a precautionary measure. Buckingham Palace says the Duke is expected to remain in hospital for a few days of observation and rest. His illness is not related to COVID-19. The Queen and Prince Philip were vaccinated in early January. Prince Philip retired from public duties in 2017. He only makes rare appearances. Well, many parts of the country are dealing with snow, and a lot of it. For a 12-year-old in Cape Breton, all that snow means all kinds of fun. The Nova Scotia boy has cerebral palsy and wasn't able to go sledding because he didn't have the right kind of equipment until someone stepped in, and then others stepped up. Brent Calloway has a story.
Nicole McNeil of Whitney Pier didn't want her son Devin to miss out on the joys of winter, so she took to Facebook to see if someone could make him an accessible sled. Devin has cerebral palsy and needs to keep his body supported, but when she made the post, a friendly stranger offered an alternative.
I wanted something that somebody could make if I gave them an idea, kind of thing. And but this gentleman said, you know, it's fine. He wanted to do it. And I was like, well, I told him straight I didn't want to, but he said he wanted to.
That so-called gentleman was Austin Smith, who offered to launch a fundraiser for a brand new accessible sled worth $1,300.
Everybody's willing to help everybody. So, you know, once I put it to her, like, it's just like it's his sports. Everybody was right on board with that, and you know, he's happy.
The money was raised in less than 24 hours. When Devin received the sled from Ontario, he hit the hills right away. Now the popular sledding spot Ashby Hill has a new smiling face going down it.
Now that we have it situated that he's sitting proper and he smiles, he loves it, he laughs.
Smith says he's happy to see Devin is making the most of his new sled.
They're there all the time sledding, so I know just how much that must mean to him and his mom to see him get to go with his friends now.
The design of the sled will allow Devin to use it into adulthood. Brent Calloway, CBC News, Sydney.
It's a pretty sweet sled and a sweet story. That's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media too. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We stream the show live on Facebook and Twitter as well. The Rick Mercer Report, it's up next. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.